and its effect on our environment. Shawn, what is acid rain besides it just being rain, acid and rain?
I think it's smog from the factories combined with water vapor.
Shawn, what do you think it is?
Well, I agree with him. I think it's chemicals coming from the smoke, from the factories, from the smokestacks and factories, and the wind's blowing it all towards Maine, and it's combining with water vapor and coming out precipitation.
Alan, what do you think is acid rain?
I guess I'd have to agree with both of them. I think it's chemicals coming from the smoke from factories that get into the clouds and come down as precipitation.
Shawn, what do you feel about acid rain?
I think it's hurting our environment very bad.
Alan, do you think acid rain is affecting Maine citizens?
Yes, I think it's kind of ruining the environment for them to do outside recreation.
Shawn, do you think acid rain is affecting Maine more or less than other states?
Well, I think it's affecting Maine more because all the winds blowing the air goes and the acid rain all the way down to Maine, and it's not blowing it towards the western states, so we're getting the worst of it.
Alan, how do you feel about acid rain?
I think it's kind of ruining the world.
Shawn, how do you feel about it?
I think he's right, but basically he said it all.
Shawn,
Yeah.
acid rain.
Well, I feel that it's going to kill our forests, and it's going to kill the plants that we get from the ground that we eat, so we won't have any vegetables or fruits that grow on trees.
Good. How do you think acid rain will affect Maine in the future?
I think it'll get worse because the more companies will get more modern, and unless they get filters for smoke, the more smoke will come down and it'll probably really damage the environment.
Truthfully, have any of you ever thought about acid rain before today?
Yeah.
I have, because
Right.
I know in science class we've been reading articles in Science World, and we read one on acid rain, and that's what made me want to do this project.
Well, what do you all... Have you ever thought about acid rain?
Well, yeah, I have.
What do you feel about it? I mean,
I think it's very harmful.
I think acid rain is dangerous, and I have thought about it before, but not real deeply. I mean, I've seen it in articles, but that's just about it.
I agree with all of you. I mean, I've never really gotten deeply into it before. I know that it's very harmful, and I hope that we can get rid of it. What do you all feel we can do to control it?
Oh, I think that we can stop the factories from having all the smoke come out of the smokestacks. They should find a way to modify it so the smoke wouldn't get into the air and come towards Maine.
Well, we could cut down on what really produces it, like not producing more factories to make the smoke to make acid rain, and like on certain hours drive cars.
But cutting down on factories will lower the economy.
Yeah, but still,
That's true, but
If you can get something to stop the smoke, filter it out from the smokestacks, it'll help. Don't stop the factories,
Well, I
because
think
it's not the
we
factories.
should stop the factories. They're the ones who built the smokestacks higher, so the stuff would go towards Maine and not stay there. We should make them a smaller smokestack.
So then
What
you're
makes
gonna
you-
stop
They
it.
shouldn't make it our problem. It should be their problem.
Yeah, but if they stop the factories, what are we gonna do? I mean, it will become our problem because
don't-
if they stop the factories, what are we gonna do
They
about
don't
it?
have to stop the factories. Just
That's what you just
make the
said.
smokestacks shorter so it's their problem and not our problem at the moment.
I don't mean stop the factories. I mean, just stop making them more and more. We're making them
I mean,
faster
Yeah.
than we can
faster we can deal
stop
with
the.
I agree. I think
stop
that
it.
we should just kind of like cut down the smokestacks or something, because I really don't think that they were intentionally putting the smoke up
But
to come straight to me.
whether
put
they
it-
were or
they
not,
weren't
it is
putting-
coming to me.
They weren't putting it to Maine, they just raised it so we weren't coming to the city.
Yeah,
They
The
want
higher
it
the
to go
smoke
up
goes,
into
the
the air.
farther it's gonna go.
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't really think that this should be our problem. They should have smaller smokestacks, and I agree with what
I'm
Shawn said.
sure
They
that
shouldn't
they
make more
didn't need
factories.
it to be our
Small.
problem. I'm
Well,
sure that they did not
They
need
meant it
that.
to be somebody else's problem besides theirs.
The
That's why
smaller
they make
snow, the smokestacks just get shorter, it ain't gonna do anything.
Okay, well,
Stop the factories. I just cut down on them. Just go slowly on building them instead of just going fast, real fast.
Instead,
They're trying to build factories more real fat.
that could help you here. Like, instead of building so many factories so quick, they should slow down and not have so many factories. I mean, we're getting along. We have enough stuff in the world. We don't need more. I mean, we're good. The U.S. is going along good right now, so we don't need many more factories.
In the factories, get rid of our natural resources like the trees, because we need the space to build them. And the trees, get rid of the smog.
But on the other hand, though, because you need the trees, because how are we going to have paper?
You need the trees for
That's what I was-
oxygen.
Yeah, you need the trees up for oxygen, which is when you can't build so many factories, it'll take away trees, and there goes your oxygen.
can I say anything to this? What I was gonna say is that we are growing though. I
Yeah.
mean, day by day we're growing. We may need more factories, but I think that Shawn has a very good point. Why don't we just take our time and build the factories right?
Yeah, I like your point. Like, there's people, I mean, there's more and more people coming to the world every day, but it works on the other way too, because if there's so many factories being built, there won't be room for the people. I mean, we need, but the factories need to make paper and everything, because we wouldn't be going anywhere in the world without it.
Then again, it's easier said than done. You can't do that as an individual.
Yeah, you need,
What are you gonna do?
you could go to the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency.
You could also go see some legislators of the state of Maine. We can bring up the subject more and we can see what we really can do. That we really can do.
We could legislators in Maine, or we could have a petition signed and bring it to one of the legislators, and we could change his mind. We could bring him, like, to tell that to the governor and bring it up in the House of Representatives and everything.
Good. Now we're going to take this matter further and we're going to go and see what the people on the streets think about this problem. My Lawrence and my assistant Shawn Huzzy now in cups. Mr. Lawrence, we'd like to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
What is acid rain?
Well, acid rain is a term that's used to describe the pollution in precipitation. When it rains, the rainfall scavenges pollution out of the atmosphere and then it falls to Earth, and this pollution is in a form of acid, so people refer to it as acid rain. The acidity that's in the precipitation is called acid rain.
Next question is acid rain affecting Maine more or less than other states?
If you want to include all of the lower 48 states, I'd have to say that it's affecting Maine less than some of the other states. In the Northeast in general is affected more than, because, well, it's a little hard to generalize, but in the Northeast, acid rain is probably as big a problem as it is anywhere else in the country. However, in Maine, it's not quite as big a problem as it is in the rest of the Northeast. The deposition of air pollution tends to get worse as you, tends to get decrease as you move, say, from New York State east towards Maine. Vermont has a little bit less than New York, New Hampshire a little bit less than Vermont, and so forth. But there is a certain amount of acid rain falling in Maine right now.
What is causing acid rain more?
More than,
Well, I mean, in general, what is the most?
in Maine, the precipitation is primarily a mixture of sulfuric acid, nitric acid, actually just those two compounds, sulfuric and nitric acid. The nitric acid is generally assumed to come from various forms of pollution, from car exhaust, automobile exhaust. The exhaust go up into the air and then undergo different chemical reactions and then end up as nitric acid. The sulfuric acid is usually associated with burning of coal in factories or electrical energy generating plants.
Okay, thank you. What do you feel should be done about acid rain?
Well, certainly reducing the source of the pollution would be the best place to start. You've probably heard in the news there are very intense debates on the Clean Air Act going on in Congress right now, led by our Senator George Mitchell, and hopefully they can get the act through so that it will effectively reduce the sources of the pollution in the future.
What do you think will happen if we don't do something about this?
Well, that's a very good question, but it's one that's a little difficult to answer. Because we really only identified acid rain as being a problem only about 15 years or so ago, so that we really don't know what things were like prior to acid rain. We do know that acid rain has been occurring ever since our country has become industrialized. We don't know what things were like before that happened, so it's a little hard for us to predict what will happen in the future. What potentially could happen is that more lakes and streams become acidic to the point where fish and other forms of life die, and eventually you could see an effect on forests and agricultural crops as well. They have seen problems with forests dying or slowing down in growth, at least in Europe, where pollution is much worse than it is here. So it is foreseeable that the pollution continues into the future or gets worse. Continues at the level it is now or gets worse, then we could start seeing some problems with the trees. But we haven't yet, at least not at the low elevations.
What do you think we can do about acid?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. Probably the best thing would be to get involved in political activities that would help push legislation through at the federal level, because acid rain is a problem that's facing our whole country. A lot of the pollution that we get here in Maine is generated in other states, so that if we're really going to make a big difference, we need to cut down pollution over a large region, so that'll take federal action. Some of the things that they're doing for short-term solutions, they're experimenting in the Adirondack Mountains in New York with adding lime to lakes and also to forest watersheds to try and neutralize the acidity in the precipitation. It's sort of a short-term solution, and it's very complicated trying to determine how much lime that you need to add to neutralize the acidity, and it's also there's a problem with you have to continually add it either every year or every few years or something like that, because it's getting used up and it's very expensive, so it's really not a good long-term solution.
So how much acid rain falls per year?
Well, in Maine, a value for 1988 would be about 1.6 grams per square meter of sulfate and about 1 gram per square meter of nitrate. And those are the two components that are associated with the sulfuric and the nitric acid.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lawrence.
Before we leave, raising the smokestack so it doesn't go in their cities, it affects regions further off.
Well, that's a practice that's been used for quite a while, and now it's starting to catch up with us in terms of the pollution, even though it goes way up and goes away from the community where it's being generated, it is falling down on somebody else. Really, that's more of a political question. If you pass legislation to make shorter smokestacks, then perhaps there would be more motivation to cut down on the pollution, just because the people who live in the towns and work in the factories and benefit from the factories would also be the ones who would be harmed by the pollution. So there is some political logic to forcing them to decrease the size of their smokestacks.
Do you think they feel as long as it's not their city, it's not their problem?
Well, that's the problem with the high smokestacks, and that's why there's a lot of resistance to the Clean Air Act that George Mitchell is trying to pass, because a lot of the pollution comes, for example, from Ohio. But Ohio doesn't have a problem with acid rain. The particular nature of the soils and the forests in Ohio make them quite resistant to acid rain, so that they really don't see a problem with it, and they don't want to have the economic costs imposed by pollution control imposed upon them to save Maine's lakes, basically.
How about filters? Do you think they could ever come up with a filter to put like in the smokestack?
Well, they do have technology to reduce pollution very significantly, and it's improving, I guess, at a fairly good rate. It is very expensive, particularly to put this type of pollution control technology into the older factories. And another problem is that these filters that they put into the factories take out quite a bit of the pollution from the air. But then you have to clean your filter, and you've got that form of pollution deposited on the filter, and then you've got to do something with that too. And I think as more legislation forces factories to use these types of pollution controls, they're going to have to come up with some sort of plan for disposing of the pollution that they're stopping at the smokestack.
Okay, thank you. Here is Alan Cups, Shawn Hussey, Mr. Lawrence, and me. Kind of the university, and I'm going to ask
Scott Finnegan.
some questions on acid rain. Do you know what acid rain is?
Yeah, it's when pollutants from factories and car emissions get into the atmosphere, like I don't know the exact names, but they mix with the clouds and it comes down, returns to the ground in the form of acid precipitation.
Okay, do you think acid rain is affecting Maine more or less than other states?
Well, probably more because of the fact that there's a lot of paper mills in the region, you know, and I'm sure they probably put out a lot of the materials that would cause acid rain. Plus, we're right near Canada. Ontario itself is one of the leading producers of acid rain.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah,
God.
outside the campus. And I'm just going to ask some people on acid rain again. Do you think the acid rain is affecting Maine more or less than other states?
Probably about the same as most Maine states. I think it's well, it's probably a lot worse. Probably a lot worse.
We have
Why
a
don't you
thriving
answer
paper
this
industry
question?
that's spewing chemicals out into the air, wrecking it all.
Actually, Maine is not being affected the most.
Yeah,
I knew that
New
because
York.
I
Take
talked
New
to-
York for example. How many?
New York,
Yeah.
actually,
How
New
many
York
lakes?
is
See, I didn't
being
think so. I
affected.
thought
How
it was
many lakes
far
have been
north.
depopularized
That is
by
true.
fish? Yeah? Six? No,
Six,
more,
no,
much
seven.
more than that.
Seven at least.
What do you guys feel should be done about this? Factories cut down?
A cut down in cars, yeah. Cars.
Well, it'd be simple. There's a real simple excuse. We have the technology now to not need cars. We can use electromagnetism. And I feel that the government is backing down on the fact of increased technology, mainly due to
Economics.
yeah, well, economics, and also keeping everyone who is in control of the car business. So
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine how...
Corporations run this.
yeah.
They want to sell their fuel and they want to sell their cars, so they're not going to, like, the government isn't going to make.
So we're being duped by politicians. Well,
That will cost us billions of dollars if we use it on electromagnetism.
oh well.
So.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm sure you don't
tired of our antics there.
No, I'm sure you
Okay.
just don't want to be. Yeah, not bad. To ask questions about acid rain. Do you think acid rain is affecting you more or less than other states?
Gee, I'm not sure, but it certainly is affecting us. I don't know whether it's affecting us more than, New York or New Hampshire.
Do you have any ideas how we could cut down on acid rain?
Sure, what you do is cut down on the coal burning in places like Ontario and the Midwest.
And how do you think acid rain? What do you think is making the acid rain?
Well, I'm not sure what the biochemical nature of acid rain is, but the best evidence is that you get certain hydrocarbons going in the air out in the Midwest and southern Canada. They float through the air here. There's certain chemical changes that take place through photosynthesis, and it comes down and it's acidic, And it gets all over the state of Maine, and if you go skiing late in the season, you can see it right on the bottom of your skis.
Okay.
And your tires there.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Putting on acid rain, asking people in the campus of University of Leeds. What, in your opinion, is acid rain?
Acid rain is pollution. Large corporations
Okay. What do you think, if we don't do anything now about acid rain, how do you think it'll affect us in the future?
I think it'll turn into a very big problem. I think it'll make things a lot worse. A lot of animals and trees and things will die. And that's doing something.
And one last one.
Do you think it's affecting our forest? Do you think it's affecting our forest
It's
at all?
yeah, you can even see it. I think that they,
Do you think it's affecting me more or less?
I think that they've proven that it's affecting Maine very much. That
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Huzzy here, reporting with
Dave
Mosher on acid rain. How do you feel about acid rain? Do you think it's hurting Maine?
Definitely, it's a big problem. It's hurting the environment, so it's hurting us since we're part of the environment.
Where do you think it's the worst, like in Maine or New York or where?
I'm not sure if you can say it's worse anywhere than anywhere else. I think no matter where the acid rain comes down, it's gonna enter some part of the environment, and its effects are just gonna spread out.
What do you think will happen if we don't do anything about it?
I think that the quality of life for everybody, not just, maybe the fish and the trees like it is now, is affected, but it'll get further into the food chain, into the ecosystem, and everybody will suffer for it.
Well, thank you. And that's all from the University of Maine Camp Louder. I'm going to ask her a few questions about acid rain. Do you think acid rain is affecting Maine more or less than other states?
I don't know, but I know that it is affecting Maine, that a lot of lakes have become, the populations have died, the lakes are starting to die.
What do you think acid rain is?
I can't think of it. It's when CO2, no, it gets what the factories put out get into the rain and snow, and it comes down.
What do you think will happen if we don't do anything about this? Louder.
I think that eventually we're going to lose a lot of our trees and our lakes, and we're going to have a real problem.
Thank you. That's all.
Ruby Nesbitt, and I'm gonna ask her a couple of questions about acid rain. Do you think it's affecting Maine more or less than other states?
Why? Because of the patterns of the wind. We're getting a lot of industrial pollution, and I think that's going to affect our state.
And what is acid rain in your opinion?
It's polluted air is what it is, and it's I can't tell you exactly what kind of molecules, but it is polluted air that affects wildlife, it affects the streams, it affects the lakes, in turn it affects all of our ecology.
And one more, if we don't do anything about this now, how do you think it'll affect us in the future?
Oh, I think we'll have a less desirable planet on which to live.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In front of the UMO with Philip Neb. How do you feel acid rain is affecting our forest?
Excuse me. Well, I think there are some signs that it's starting to kill them. Starting to die. There are many trees that look very bad. Those people I've talked to who know say that that's the rest.
Do you think it's affecting Maine more or less than other states?
Oh, I'd say more. Our prevailing winds come from the southwest. If you look at the map of the United States, you see that's where all of the big industrial smokestacks are, right southwest of Maine. We just picked them right up the coast towards us.
That is good. But the most place acid rain is actually affecting is New York City, because all the winds are prevailing in the air. Because we talked to Professor Moore.
Right. Well, now, but the acid rain then doesn't just stop at New York City, right?
Yeah,
it keeps
exactly,
going,
yeah.
and we're next up the line.
Yeah,
So I'm sure they're getting a lot of it, but so are we.
Okay, thank you for this.
You're welcome.
In the museum, and I'm asking Beth Nelson and Brandon Jones some questions on acid rain. Do you guys know what acid rain is? Do you? Yes. Okay, what is it?
It's when harmful chemicals get into the water and rain will destroy
Yeah, do you think that it's affecting Maine more or less than other states? Yeah, it's more in Canada than New York, actually. Do you think it's affecting our forests?
I'm not really sure. Probably not yet.
Okay, do you think it's affecting Maine more or less than other states?
Well, kind of less.
Okay, well, I guess that's all for right now.
Don Stratton on acid rain. What, in your opinion, is acid rain?
Acid rain is pollution.
Do you think it's affecting Maine more or less than other states?
I really don't know. Certainly, probably as much.
If we don't do anything now, do you think it'll affect us in the future?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Paul.
I'm going to ask him a few questions about acid rain. What do you think we can do about it? Like to stop all the rain from polluting our environment?
I think we need to stop it primarily through its source, through the corporations who are emitting the acid.
Well, you just answered my next question. What is causing acid rain? Well, anyway, do you think acid rain is affecting me more or less in other states, and why?
I don't know if it's affecting us more or less. I think any amount of it, though, is dangerous. I think we need to eliminate it entirely.
What do you think will happen if we don't do anything about this?
It will only get worse. If we don't say stop now, then it'll just get worse.
All right, thank you.
Thanks to the museum. I'm interviewing Gary. Gary, do you know exactly what acid rain is?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you think that it's affecting Maine a lot, or do you think it's affecting Maine more or less than states like New York and New Hampshire and the northern states? Yeah. Do you think it's affecting our forests, our waters, our lakes, our animals, us, anything?
Yeah, a great deal.
Yes, it is. What do you think will happen if it isn't prevented or stopped or something? What do you think will happen if it isn't? What do you think will happen to the world?
Probably destroy itself.
Okay, thank you. Gary? And I'm asking you questions on acid rain. Do you know exactly what acid rain is?
I think I do, yeah.
What is it?
Well, it's pollutants in the air that get into the atmosphere and then come down in the rain.
Good. Do you think it's affecting Maine more or less than other states?
I would think,
Or even
since
the
I think a lot of the pollutant comes from cities like Pittsburgh or more industrial cities like that. I know I'm from Boston and we're pretty affected by pollutants from there, so I would think Maine is pretty affected by it also.
Actually, the most affected place is Ohio and New York and places like that. Do you think that our earth will kind of deteriorate if acid rain is not stopped?
I think there are a lot of factors that's going to cause our Earth to disintegrate before acid rain, but acid rain is definitely
Okay, thank you, Gary. I'm here with
Robert Cave.
and I'm asking you a few questions on acid rain. Do you think the acid rain is affecting me?
I do, from what I've read. I don't know that much about it, but from what I've read and heard, I would say it did.
Okay. Do you think that it's affecting our forests, our